Hello, good morning. Thank you for your patience. I appreciate I'm a minute or two late. With exquisite timing, the heat pump engineer that I've been waiting for several months turned up this morning just minutes before, so I had to go make him a coffee and start a conversation. The joys of home working. All right. By the way, also today's been a very exciting day for me because I in anticipation of his arrival early this morning, with the help of Claude Code, built a thing that used a hacked API on the controller for the heat pump to bring all the data from the heat pump into my home automation. So I'm feeling very sort of geeky and proud of that as well. But right, enough heat pump stuff. Today, I am talking about the questions your website should answer and probably doesn't. This is based somewhat on our experience of building more than 120 websites. Now it says 115 there, but we're cracking on. And also third-party and articulate research about how people engage with websites and some of the things that people need to do. We have been doing websites for more than a decade. We've been in the business for more than 20 years, so this is where I'm coming from. Enough of a pitch about us. If any of this lands with you or you find it interesting and you would like to talk to me about your website, I'm offering a free 30-minute, no BS, no hard sell conversation. You can book that at articulatemarketing.com/meet. So we're going to look at four things today: how to audit and review your website, why most websites get it wrong, how to write copy that people can use online and how people read online, and a prioritization framework for making your site better. And we're focusing mainly on the homepage in this presentation because that's mainly where people are coming, but the principles apply across the whole site. I should say also I'm carrying the scars a little bit because we have been trying to apply these principles to Articulate's homepage. For the most part, we've succeeded. If we have time, I will tell you where I think we still have work to do, and we'll do a little bit of a live teardown of Articulate's site. If there isn't time, because I talk too much, well, maybe give me a call and we'll set something up and I'll show you mine if you show me yours. Right, so how to look at your website with Articulate X-ray vision glasses, right? See what's going on and see it as it really is. And obviously, before you can fix anything, you kind of need to know what's broken. So these are the 5 questions that every visitor to your website is going to be asking, not in terms of a checklist in their head necessarily, but intuitively, instinctively, and almost instantaneously. And Microsoft research found that people were making decisions about a website home page or visiting, whether it was worth staying, in fractions of a second. So they're looking at it. Human beings are actually quite good at doing that and differentiating between good and bad websites and websites that answer their questions or don't. And we do it on quite an automated heuristic basis. But what people are doing is they are going, okay, what do you do? What have you ever done for me? What can you do for me? Is it relevant to me? So for a B2B marketing agency, do you do B2B marketing, right? Are you a demand gen agency? Are you a lead gen? Are you a performance marketing agency? Are you the thing I'm looking for? Have you got an answer to my questions for my kind of business? They're looking for trust signals, right? They're looking for evidence that you can support your claims. And those trust signals can be quite subtle. I mean, they can just be, social media or social quotes or case studies or evidence or logos. That's quite important, of course. They can also be just, and I'm going to use this word advisedly, but what Stephen Colbert calls truthiness. So evidence of data, so numbers and stats and things. If you look at Apple's website, for example, they'll talk about a product and they'll have a sort of hypey headline that's quite quirky and fun, and then they'll have all kinds of, it's an A18 processor and it's twice as fast as last year's model and that sort of thing. That's what I mean, that sort of trust, evidence, data, proof points. People are looking for some evidence or information, and this is really common for B2B marketing websites, but how much the thing costs. So they'll probably be gravitating to a pricing page quite quickly. And the old adage, if you have to ask the price, you can't afford it, is sort of partially true. people will look, and if they don't find clear pricing indications, they're likely to go on and try and find someone else who will give them those prices. The frustration of going to a website and finding that it just sort of says, it's a pricing page and it just says, contact us for a price, means you're going to be sold to, and they're going to price you and your price the client, not the work. The Norman Nielsen group, who are experts on website usability, they say that B2B websites should give some pricing. And if you can't give specific pricing, give indicative pricing from, or projects typically cost, or we work for companies in this sort of range, or companies spend this sort of amount of money with us. You can do that while still leaving your sales team flexibility. If you look at CloverDX website, cloverdx.com, we built them a really sophisticated pricing calculator that still gives indicative but well-bounded estimates based on the type of usage that their clients are going to have. So there are ways of doing this without compromising your sales negotiation or over communicating to competitors, which are the usual two objections. And next steps. So here's the test. Go ask somebody who doesn't really know that much about the business and say, go look at our homepage, and after 1 minute, write down the answers to these questions, right? Can you find this information? Or get them to do it and get them to tell you, right? Give them those questions. While they are looking, get them to give you the answers. And it's often quite painful and quite revealing. And it doesn't cost a load of money to do. You don't have to have a sort of 100 user panel anonymous survey or one-way mirrors or anything to do that. You can just actually get it. But you need to see it with fresh eyes. And what you will typically find, and what we typically find when we look at websites, is the hero section has sort of generalities, or even worse, it has a scrolling carousel that's trying to communicate 3 things, but people only ever see 1 or 2. The ideal customer is implied but never stated. In other words, everybody should be buying or could be buying our things, so we don't want to accidentally constrain ourselves by saying, by the way, this isn't for these people. You can map out the using a golfing metaphor, the green and the hole and the pin. You want everyone who visits the website to be a hole in one, but actually you can still say, we do, as Articulate does, we do B2B marketing, or we do B2B marketing in health tech and life sciences and environmental services, for example. And people still come, and they might be on the green, but they might not be the full target ICB. So you can be specific without being exclusionary. Typically social proof, meaning case studies or logos, are buried somewhere or unavailable or hidden on in the worst case, hidden behind gated forms to download rather than being surfaced. CTAs which say get in touch or let's talk when they should say something specific. And this is the thing right now that Articulate's homepage is failing on. We're working on it. And the navigation is either overcomplicated, or the on-page nav, the next steps, what we call the next best step, is often hidden, and it's not well mapped out or thought through for different audiences. You think about a website might have a primary audience of potential customers, a secondary audience of actual customers trying to log into an app, a third audience of potential recruitment candidates, a fourth audience of investors or potential investors or shareholders, or there are multiple audiences to every website, and making sure that the navigation serves them well is really important. These are all sort of blindingly obvious points. I'm not saying anything that it ought not to be obvious to somebody thinking about their website for the first time. But yet we keep coming across these 5 problems on websites. I came across a website yesterday, last week, which we would very much like to help with, that said, above the scroll, the secret of X, right? Their market sector, their target audience. And it's like, if what you're saying is we've got a secret, and that's the main message of, it's not the secret to improving X, or the secret to solving X, or the secret to cutting costs of X, or it's the secret. It reminds me of my old computer game days, when we used to say there are 3 secrets of making a hit game, but nobody knows what they are. Anyway, so that's the ultimate manifestation of a homepage that doesn't actually communicate what they do, for who or for whom, or why it matters. Right. So why websites often fall into these traps and bury this information. And I would say very often, this is an observation of mine personally, it's what I call the hippo problem, right? The highest paid person in the room, they have an opinion about what the website should say or do, and it's very hard to get them past that. And that's often compounded or conflated with what we call the person in the mirror problem, which is you as a business owner or a marketing director or a product manager know your product intimately. You know who's buying it and what benefits they have. So if you could talk enough about your product or your service in your language, people will buy it. Well, that doesn't work. If you actually want to sell on a website, you need to be thinking about what the audience needs, what they're looking for, what they want to understand, and answer their questions in their language and explain the benefits and how it helps them. This is the fundamental political reasons why B2B websites often miss these 5 key points. But let's get into a little bit more detail about how people behave on a website. So the first thing is people rarely scroll on a website. So they might come to your homepage or a product page or something that they found through Google or a search, an answer engine, a large language model. And that bit above the scroll, the first thing they see, has to work harder than almost the rest of the page and the rest of the site put together. Norman Nielsen Group, their research says that above the scroll and maybe the next sort of scroll's depth below that has the most information, the most impact, the most value. You earn the right to have the rest of the conversation there. So if you've got a very badly, well, let me rephrase it. Here are some of the things that people do. They put a carousel, so it's distracting and trying to communicate 3 different or 4 different things at once. That's a terrible idea. Or it's a beautiful video and we're going to take 5 seconds to load it, but it's going to show, you know, exciting office people doing happy, clever, techie things. And then we're going to put some text over it that's going to be really hard to read because there's animation behind it and there's not a contrasting background and all this stuff. You've already blown it. And it might look great, and you know the highest paid person in the room is going to go, you know, fantastic. Hippo, by the way, sorry, I misspoke. Highest paid person's opinion. Hippo. The hippo in the room is going to go, that looks amazing. It looks really sexy and exciting, and that communicates the values of the business, and you know, whatever. Right? Yeah. The top of your homepage is not a Super Bowl advert. Really important understanding, right? What you have to use that space for is what you do in plain language, not in jargon, what you do, who you do it for, why you're different, and one clear next step. Those 4 things have to be above the scroll, all right? Our data, using tools like Hotjar, Lucky Orange, where we're looking at scroll depth, among other things, and click heat and things, but scroll depth, the bottom of a long scrolling homepage where you've, you know, set out everything but the kitchen sink, you're lucky if 5% ever get to the bottom of that page. Lucky. And it drops proportionally the longer and the deeper into the scroll you go. So it's not just get the bit above the homepage right, but the next bit is important. And the bit after that, you're lucky if a few people are watching it. I'll give you another observation. It's Matthew's sort of follow-on law. Most visitors do not click to play. So if you put a video like a third of the way down the page, like this is everything you need to know about our business, just click the play button and we will tell you. Our experience is it's less than 0.5% of visitors to a page will click the play button. So you might spend a huge amount of money getting a lavishly well produced video, and you would have been better off having 50 words of beautifully written copy, because everyone will read that. Most people will read that. They won't click on the video. Right. Then there is an information hierarchy problem. Fundamentally, there's a mismatch between what companies, hippos, marketing people think is important and what visitors actually want in the order they want it. So companies often lead with credentials, and that's often okay. So you have managed service providers going, you know, we're a Microsoft partner or a Symantec partner or something like that. That's important, but it might need to sit further down the page. visitors fundamentally want to know what's in it for them. So what? Why you? How can you help? So, we get companies that they're leading with their vision and their mission and, something, and we've spent days with consultants working out what our positioning statement is, or messaging or something. And then they're talking about product features. So we have this thing or that thing, or with the secret of X. Oh, we've been around 20 years. Now, we do some of this stuff, and some of it is important credentials, but leading with it at the expense of other things is the problem. So what people actually want to know is, what are the problems you're solving? What's the outcome or outcomes you'll get? What proof have you got that it works? Do you do it for companies or like mine? What's next? And again, I will just really emphasize the point here. Side-scrolling carousels with multiple pages are never the answer. If that is the design solution that you have come up with, you haven't thought hard enough about this. Just take that away. If I do nothing else from this call but communicate that message, happy days. So fixing this stuff isn't necessarily requiring a huge rebrand. You don't need to call Wolf Olins or Interbrand in and spend 6 figures on a new logo or slogan or something. Rewrite the hero section. Try different hero sections. Why not? It doesn't have to be set in stone. It can evolve. Our homepage hero section probably changes every month as we're crawling towards something better than we had before. Add a one-line, we help X to do Y, because anything that is in that sort of category, this is what we do for whom. Try and surface your best case studies or testimonials. It's better to give evidence of who you do it for than, sort of say we do it for these people. It's quite nice if people can recognize some names. Replace generic CTAs with specific ones, and audit the navigation. And this work is, you could do it for a homepage. You could do one pass of it in half a day. I mean, if you have to do politics and consensus building and brainstorming, allow a little bit more time. The last update we did on our homepage was about that a couple of weeks ago, and we're probably doing that every month or two at the moment, just sort of while we're evolving. Okay, so the next thing is the copy on the website. This is the payload of the missile. This is the thing that matters. Pictures sometimes matter. There is a sort of visual channel in our brain that looks for imagery to support things. There is some value in illustrations and diagrams if they genuinely illustrate or enlighten or illuminate. But words are the thing that a website delivers. And you need to review the complexity, the style, the depth, the length of the copy to make sure that you are delivering clarity at pace. So people who are busy making decisions, reading quickly, skipping, are getting the information they need. Pages or homepages or pages that have hundreds and hundreds of words might be helpful if those words are useful and you've earned the right to communicate them, but the key stuff needs to be delivered very efficiently. So let's have a look at how B2B buyers, and indeed everyone, actually reads a website. And you can validate this, although it's well established in usability data, and Norman Nielsen Group has a report of how people, usability factors for B2B websites. It's well understood. You can validate this from your own direct experience the next time you look at a website. Okay, so the first thing is this F pattern. People tend to look at the top and the left-hand side. They've been trained that the right-hand side is where the adverts live. They tend to sort of scan a little bit like this, with a little bit more attention to the full width and the right-hand side at the top, but going narrow and narrow on the left. Look at that, I'm doing live diagramming with my hand. Beat that, Claude. People scan text, they don't read it. I've used this metaphor before because it amuses me, but people's eyes run around a page on a website like a child skipping on hot sand at the beach. They don't read left to right every line, every word. That's just not how people engage, and this has been proven by eye tracking studies. Headlines and subheadings are critical. In a way, you want to make sure that the structure of the page, if somebody only reads the headlines and subheads, they're still getting the basic story. And if the subheading or the headline lands correctly and communicates correctly, it opens up people's attention for what lies underneath. And if it doesn't, they just skip to the next headline or back to Google, back to onto the next site that they're looking at. It tends to be very, very quick, very binary, very scanning. If you go and look at BBC News, they are the absolute experts at doing one paragraph sentences, right? So every sentence has to earn its place on the site, and standalone sentences or one sentence paragraphs are what people need to read quickly on the web. So that's how they do it. If you start writing for that, structuring your copy and website layouts in that way, you are going to automatically get a boost of credibility, recall, and engagement. What kills copy? What puts people off on their website? And again, this is well attested by multiple researchers, but Norman Nielsen's group, How People Read on the Web, is the definitive article. Jargon, hype, vagueness, like weasel words, might, should, could, we, many people say, that sort of thing, and passive voice sentences, overcomplicated, long $10 words, probably the fifth thing, kill readability. So work on that, review the copy, and especially on high value pages, high traffic pages. This is also an easy exercise, and now you can use AI tools or Grammarly, or there's all kinds of things that you can say that just give me readability, help me reduce hype, let me make this more specific, until you can find it. You don't have to necessarily be a genius copy editor to get some improvement. If you want it really done well, however, you do need genius human input, expert input. There's a reason why editors spend years becoming editors, and writers who are good spend years becoming writers who are good. You can't get that from AI yet. You can get some of that benefit, but not the whole way. All right. Given that everybody is scanning, every piece of content on the page has to earn its place. It has to be justifiable. And one of the biggest changes we've made over the last 18 months on our homepage is the number of elements and modules has dropped dramatically. I mean, we're probably about a third of the weight that we used to have, and yet the elements that are there and left, it's like we've taken beer and distilled it into whiskey. It's much more impactful and much stronger. So here are some examples of copy changes that to illustrate the point: innovative end-to-end solutions, jargon, hype, empowerment. This is waffly, throat clearing. We help B2B companies generate more qualified leads. Right, okay, I get that. Everyday language, specificity, so on. Similarly, we've built websites for more than 115 B2B tech companies, is much stronger than we've got decades of experience and blah, blah, with experience, blah, 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 blah. All of those things are true, but the data, the number, the truthiness gives it a much heavier weight. So what should you be doing? What should you be prioritizing if you were going to do a 1-week sprint on your website to make sure that it has all the things that it needs? High impact but low effort things exist, and I've talked about the audit. Get your friend, colleague, mother to audit your homepage for you and really pay attention to that. Look at how the copy is written on that page. Look at what's above the scroll. You do not need to do a full redesign to implement these things. Sometimes you do need to do a full redesign. If you've been locked out of your website by a developer, or your website consistently doesn't communicate who you are or the latest brand, or isn't well structured for SEO, or doesn't support mobile, etc., etc. And we see some websites the 90s called wants their website back. There are some pretty rotten websites, but you can do this stuff right now on almost any website platform. So hero section rewrite, clarity about who you help, promote, surface, make more visible the social proof, rewriting the CTAs to be more specific, and adding more next best step links are easy, quick wins. Easy with attention, with effort, and with consensus behind the need for change. More broadly, replicating that process onto more high impact pages, really paying attention to the information hierarchy, really paying attention to the copy and readability, usability of the copy, really thinking about your conversion rate optimization paths, setting up metrics and measuring. These are all important, critical, I would say, next steps. Often bigger projects, probably with less immediate payoff, higher, well, so should we say, a higher effort to pay off investments. But once you've done the easy stuff, this is the next step, and this is a ongoing paint the fourth bridge type of optimization. And just to remind you, this is the checklist, right? Keep this in mind as you do any of this work. People need to know what you do. Is it for us? Should I trust you? What does it cost or require? What's next? Those are the 5 steps. We have a few minutes. I am going to do something I don't normally do, which is come out of my slideware, and I'm going to do a 2-minute live teardown of our website, and I will give you my live feedback about what we have done and why we did it. So this is drinking our own champagne, eating our own dog food, whatever you want to call it. Let's make that a little bit smaller so that the full menu appears. Okay, so there is a little bit of decoration there where it's setting up a theme, but there's a high contrast text block with a single next step. This is because we're positioning against purposeful B2B tech companies. All my colleagues hate this, and probably we will change it to be a little bit more prosaic. But this is what we do. This is what's in it for you. So far we have some of that. The proportions and sizing are constantly being debated. The CTA is very weak, in my opinion. What I think needs to go here is book a marketing strategy session with me, which, by the way, I would like you to do if you're watching this. Let's Talk probably needs to change to discuss a project, because we have 2 sort of inbound motions. One is where people know what they want and they just want to know if we can do it. And the other one is we don't know what we want, or we're not sure what we want. Can you help us start to think about that? So those are the 2 offers that we have. Navigation is reasonably clear, and we've put in some sentences that describe the different things. The work takes you to our case studies library, information about the sectors specifically that we work in, B2B tech broadly, and health and sustainability, the pin on the green, resources, and then there's some stuff about us. Fine. So the navigation is fairly clear. We are constantly evolving this messaging. These CTAs need to change. It's been a useful exercise doing this webinar. As we scroll down, this is where we start getting into the proof points. So is it for people like me? Well, if you're like these sorts of companies, maybe. Here are the data points, and this is we do this for these sorts of people. Difference engines is our description for the joined up version of what we do, but then it's unpacked into brand strategy, copywriting, websites, and HubSpot consultancy. So the slice is clear. And you can go to difference engines and find out what that is. Then there's that, and then we unpack that a little bit more into services and kind of what it means. Lovely quotes from some of our happy customers there. And we've tried to personalize this a bit to sort of show some social proof. I don't know, this probably needs to be replaced with a diagram. And then there's the marketing strategy session. So social proof, case studies, and right at the bottom here's the creds, and then here are the next best steps. So that's us. You've already heard me sort of say there's some work we need to do on that, but you can see also the thought process behind this webinar applied to us, and also coming out of our work for other clients where we've been able to make further advances more rapidly, a little bit like cobbler's children going on shod, or doctors who smoke. We're often late applying our advice to ourselves, but we're working on it. Right, so that brings this session to a close. Next week, I think, in a couple of weeks, my wonderful colleague Joanna is talking about improving presentations and the psychology behind why you shouldn't be using bullet points, despite the fact that I have in this deck a little bit. Do book a marketing strategy session, or drop me an email if you have any questions. this is just with me, this meeting, you know, and we'll have a nice conversation. And that brings the session to a close. Thank you very much. Oh, I can see that I'm still sharing my the website page, not this. Okay, well, anyway, thank you very much indeed for joining me. Have a fantastic day.